Thank you very much, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So it's a pleasure to have you here today. First of all, I want to start off with a geopolitical statement about the situation in Mexico. Many of you, if not all of you, have heard about the issues related to President López Obrador's attempt to introduce mining reform, amongst a whole host of other reforms in Mexico. Step one, there was an attempt to sort of put a lid on open pit mining and possibly eventually phase out open pit mining. That is not going to happen, according to the experts that we've consulted with politically and policy-wise in Mexico. There's no majority that López Obrador has to enable him to enact these reforms. A good example, of course, is he tried to do the similar reforms in the oil and gas sector a couple of years ago. That was challenged in the Supreme Court, and that was thrown out. So here we have a situation right now where he's nearing the end of his term. It's a 6-year term for a president of Mexico. The elections are being held on June the 2nd, and regardless of who gets into power going forward, we believe that there will not be an ability on anybody's part to enact reforms that adversely affect the mining industry the way that he had envisaged. So he's appealing to his power base right now with respect to the elections coming up. But to all the opinions that we've received, all the commentary we've received from business in Mexico, politicians in Mexico, is that we will not be affected adversely by these potential reforms because it will not come to pass. I will talk about Sonora State in a few minutes because that's where the epicenter of our mining situation is in Mexico. So going forward, forward-looking statements, we are talking about the future for the company. But I want to start off with the foundation of the company, which is the management team. John Darch, our chairman, has over 40 years experience in running mining companies around the world and financing them and sometimes selling these mining companies. I've had 40 years experience personally in the mining sector, in oil and gas and renewable energy sector, and in various continents. And so Sonora has been my sole focus for the past 8 years. Jorge Diaz, our mining engineer and VP of operations in Mexico, has 40 years experience in designing, developing, and operating gold mines in Mexico. Some of the notable examples, he was involved in the design of the Mulatos mine. He's involved in La Colorada, El Castillo. So these are very, very significant open pit mines in Sonora State and other parts of Mexico as well. And so his knowledge in putting together and building a mine is second to none in Mexico. He will build this mine for us, and we're ready for that. Mel Herdrick, our VP Exploration, over 5 million ounces of gold discovery to his credit. So he was the head of exploration in Mexico for Phelps Dodge for many years, head of exploration for Pediment Gold, which was eventually bought by Argonaut. And he and Jorge were the two founders of Sonora in the late 2000, around 2009, 2010. So they're still with us and will continue with us. In fact, they're two very significant shareholders as well. Location-wise, we're in Sonora State, which is, I consider to be the best state in all of Mexico to build a gold mine. Historically, it's been the #1 gold-producing state in Mexico. And currently, it's about 30% of the gold produced is mined in Sonora. They used to be around 37%, but Zacatecas is fast catching up. So it is by far the #1 as far as GDP is concerned for the economy of Sonora. 25% of the economy is reliant on the mining sector. So as you can see, it is very, very important for Sonora State to be able to state unequivocally that they support the mining industry. And the governor of Sonora, Governor Durazo, is a great supporter of ours and a great supporter of the mining sector. So we feel very confident that Governor Durazo, who is part of the Morena Party, of which President López Obrador is, of course, the leader, Governor Durazo will have influence in making sure that the economy of Sonora is not adversely affected by what's happening politically. So we've got a great supporter on our side there. There are several projects that are going through the final permitting process, and the governor is highly supportive of all 7 of us. And some of them are very significant projects as well, and ours probably has the least impact of all of these projects. We're surrounded in the Sonora State, in the northern part of the state, by producing mines. Some notables would be the Mercedes mine, operated by Bear Creek. Agnico Eagle has a Santa Gertrudis project to the north, and that's developing into a large project. And adjacent to us in the west is the Cerro Prieto mine, open pit heap leach. There's over 200 gold mines in Sonora State, so you can well imagine the impact that has on the economy. Now, in early 2023, we produced a resource estimate by SRK. And the resource estimate came in at a total of, when you tally up the indicated reserve or the resource and the inferred resource, at 440,000 mineable ounces. 440,000 mineable ounces then translates into, when you take the metallurgical recovery into account, we produce just under 300,000 ounces with 74% recovery. Now, we produced a PEA in October of 2023, and the PEA used as a base case $1,800 gold. But for our purposes here today, let's talk about what the price of gold is today, which is over $2,000. And based upon a $15.5 million capex upfront, that's US dollars, we end up with a net present value before tax of $116 million US, so $77 million after tax, and a pre-tax 85% IRR and a post-tax 63%. That gives us a payback of 2.4 years. I'm quite comfortable in saying that that is achievable because we also have, out surrounding the pit shells of 440,000 ounces of inferred and indicated, is an additional up to 285,000 ounces according to SRK. And they could not classify those as pit shell material at this point because the drill spacing was just too wide. And for example, SRK use a much tighter spacing than some of the other consultants out there. So if we had used some other consultants, maybe we'd end up with a larger resource at this point in time. But if we assume that another 22 million tons of up to 285,000 ounces can be added to the resource with minimal amount of fuss, and then we're talking, these are all drilled and assayed, and so we know that everything is mineralized, and infill drilling should be able to bring much of that material into pit shells. So you end up with a total mineralization over 700,000 ounces. We believe that with only less than 30% of the known resource which has been drilled and assayed to date, that the potential is 3 or 4 times greater than what we currently have within the pit shells. As you can see here, the majority of the drilling has been done in the central part of the concession, and that's where SRK have come up with the resource estimates. The average grade throughout the project is 0.46 grams of gold equivalent, 0.44 grams for the gold. But in the western part of the concession, where you see the Cabeza Blanca, Guadalupe, and El Colorado, the average grade is almost double the average for the entire project. And in fact, it's about, we're looking at in the first 2 to 3 years of production, we'd be looking at a very close to 0.9 grams per ton. So that is where we intend to do the initial part of the mining. And the pit shells are now working on the premise of starting off mining in the western sector and then moving to the area where the large area of the Japoneses and the surrounding areas would yield a lower grade, but a much, much larger tonnage. And some of the drilling that we're doing in the future will be in the western sector to expand the area of known high grade, and also in the northern sector, in the El Rincon sector, where SRK have given us a potential resource in that area because of the drill spacing. And now we're going to tighten that up with the next phase of drilling to hopefully enable us to bring that into indicated and inferred. And we believe that that northern sector has a capability of doubling the size of the resource from where it is currently. Give me an idea of some of the grades we're getting in the western sector. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, SCR, I think it's 386 or 286. We're getting grades of up to 47 grams, and with I think it's 27 meters of 5.5 grams approximately. And these high-grade zones are occurring just below surface. And in fact, the high grade of 47 grams is at 50 meters. And that's the kind of grades you would expect in the Mercedes mine, 8 kilometers away, but at 350 meters below surface. Now we're getting these high grades, and this is not a single isolated high-grade zone. We're getting these high-grade zones all the way up the west side of the Colorado zone and up to the north into the next zone of the Guadalupe vein structure, the one on the left. And so now we have a higher grade zone all the way from the north end of Guadalupe to the south end of Colorado, over 1 kilometer in length. Now, obviously, as you can see here, we've only scratched the surface. Our plan was to bring the project into production in order to generate cash flow earlier, and then go with that cash flow, continue with the drilling program to hopefully realize the full value of the project of up to 5 million or 2 million ounces. And as you can see here, these areas, these zones are open to depth. We will be drilling there in the future in order to fully enhance the value of the project. And that's a low-risk drilling for very, very low risk because we know they're open to depth. So easy to mine. I'll go through very quickly here. These are the zones that we're going to be drilling in the next phase of drilling, of which will be approximately 9,000 meters of drilling. I fully expect that it'll add value to the size of the resource. So getting back to the permitting issue now. So if we assume that we get the permit today, for example, if you look at the gold star in the bottom right-hand corner, that signifies that 12 months from the date we get the environmental approval, we will be pouring the first doré bar. Is that a conservative estimate? In my opinion, it is, because our team has built a mine, an open pit mine. I think it was El Castillo that was built by Jorge Diaz. And it took, from the time they got the environmental permit until they poured the first doré bar, was 5 months. So we expect to do this quite readily without breaking into a sweat in 12 months. Structure-wise, we have 177 million shares outstanding. We're trading currently at 4 to 5 cents. We're doing a small financing of $1 million. And everybody's welcome to participate in that, of course. We just had yesterday a research report put out by Tim Lee of Red Cloud, and everybody's welcome to get a copy of that. But in the meantime, as far as the structure is concerned, we have 25% of the shares are owned by the insiders of the company. We continue to finance the company as to 25 to 30% of every single one of the financings we've engaged in the past 5 years. And with this particular financing right now, it's no different. We will be fully engaged in up to 25, maybe even 30% of this financing. So as it stands right now, I'm running out of time, so I'd welcome any questions that anybody may have.